here. So I would like to welcome everyone to the Seattle Software Crafter Meetup. We meet regularly once a month. Generally, it's on the fourth Thursday of the month. For November and December in the US, it's obvious why we don't, because of Thanksgiving and Christmas. We meet on the third Thursday of the month. We are a group of crafters. We are here to find out how to do better at our craft, how to be better at writing code and working together. It's more than just a new library or something that's language specific. This is about how we get better at our craft, how we get better doing what we do, either higher quality, doing it faster, doing it more sustainable. Everything, it is about how we can be better crafters of software and in community, greater expanding beyond that. We normally talk about a wide range of subjects. This last year, we've had things on different testing. We've had psychological safety most recently. Next month, Paige is eventually going to post what he's going to talk about.
I'm going to talk about team building.
He's going to talk about team building, which is awesome. Today, I am very happy to have Ron Quartel, a good friend and colleague, come talk to us. He is a good friend of the Seattle Software Crafters. I met Ron working with him at Solutions IQ more years than I think either of us care to remember. I was very fortunate to actually bring him in to an engagement that I was at where I was starting up a group, and then we together grew this group into an amazing group of individuals that delivered some awesome stuff. And we got to try fast agile for the first time and really let it grow. It was a wonderful experience to me. Ron, to me, is a thought leader in how to free the human spirit in software. He is a person that will plant an idea bug in my head, and it will grow and pop up anywhere from 3 months to a year later and going, oh my God, this is what Ron was talking about. It's wonderful. I'm very happy to have him here. And today he's going to talk about managing software engineering teams for engineers.
Modern product management for engineers. Yeah.
I'll hand it off to you, Ron.
Thank you, Steve. You're making me blush, by the way. Thank you. So there's two of me right now. So you'll notice me looking this way. That's when I'm looking at you. You get to see the side of my head. So because I'm presenting, I've got 2 laptops and an iPad. This is an experiment, but yeah, trying to present with Zoom on meetups. Let's see how this goes. But that's why there's 2 of me, and why you'll see me do this sometimes, because this way I can see your faces, which I really miss out on when I'm in presentation mode. So without further ado, let's switch over to presentation mode. Okay, that's not what I thought. Here we go. Nope, that's not what I thought either. All right.
I'm only seeing one of you, Ron. Maybe that could be part of the problem.
Yep.
No, the second one's still connected.
Yeah, it's the tiny lowercase Ron with no last name.
Right.
Yeah. Let me try. Okay, here we go. Let's try this. No. All right. All right, let's kill this.
Do I need to make that Ron a co-host?
No, it's okay. It's in the slideshow. There we go. Now I should be able to go. Here we go. All right, we go Zoom. Now I shall share my screen, and we'll share this one. Okay, share that one. And we can go to here. And we can go to here, and yeah, I can see what you're seeing. All right. So welcome to
Modern product management for
there we go.
engineers.
Yes, modern product management for engineers. So the topic is around, it's something that I've discovered fairly recently. So I'm a developer. Okay, let's talk about me. That's what I look like on a good day. So I'm a software developer mostly. Sometimes right now I'm doing dev work. I switch in and out of it between various other things. But recently, so my background is extreme programming, hence the love for codecraft. And more recently, I've discovered, well, I started reading more about product management, and that's really opened up a whole new world for me that I kind of wanted to share with you all as what it means for us, because as developers, we often don't, you know, that's on the other side of a wall, so to speak. But I think there's a brave new world coming where it matters a bit more to us. So let's start with, I want to start with who do we have here? So I know Robert is a dev manager. Do we have anyone else that is not a dev? Start with that. Just say hi.
Yeah, I followed you from the product management world, so I'm actually the product manager who snuck in here.
Oh, cool. That's excellent. Oh, I'm really glad to have a product manager here. Yeah.
And I'm more of a tester, was a manual tester moving into Selenium and automation.
Okay. Excellent. Tester, product manager.
Hey, Ron, I'm more on the agile and product side, and maybe we'll have a lot in common because I'm very excited about modern product management too. So this is great.
Excellent. Good, because you can help me out here, probably. All right, so let's start with, let's see if I can get this to work. So over in the, actually, let's see if I can do that from here, in the chat. I'll put this link. So this is Slido. We're going to do a poll. So if this works, we shall, let's see if I do this. Present. Hey, there we go. So I think if you follow that link, there we go. You should be able to, and really, yeah, as a dev, or even pretend that you're a dev, start writing in what do you do day to day, or in a sprint or an iteration. What kind of things do devs do? We write code. Excellent. Figure out what is needed. I like that. Requirements, interpretation, troubleshoot, read code, and ask annoying questions. Refactor, yeah. Research Stack Overflow. Okay.
Yeah, the Stack Overflow one was very on point.
Mm-hmm. Write code, write tests, something like that. I love when a plan works. This is a long shot that I could get this Slido thing working. This 3 laptop idea seems to work so far.
Got all the keyboards working like in a movie.
Yeah. Manage Jira. Yeah. Eat
I'm
katsu burger.
curious who gets paid to eat katsu burgers.
The Seattle people. Yeah. Consume hot beverages. Yeah. Deb's running coffee. Or tea.
I've started drinking energy drinks, so that's fun.
Isn't that
You get
coffee
your-
too?
You get your caffeine that way.
Slightly different flavors.
Mm-hmm. Work with customers. That's kind of cool. All right. So, point stories. I'm sorry. So yeah, where I want to go with this is to say that yeah, this is kind of what you're describing a world that I'm very familiar with, and this describes what your average developer does. So remember that the theme of this is what does modern product management mean for engineers, and I think a lot of what we see here is fits in the world of what we currently know about product management. So there's an old product management and a new product management, and I'm excited about what it means for engineers. So I'm going to stop this now somehow. Stop. Cool. And thank you for that. And guys, oh, hang on. There we go. Okay. Okay. All right. So we know who we have here. So we've got mostly devs, and we had a little discussion on what we do, which kind of very much matches my experience as a dev as well. There's our poll. So this is kind of what what a lot of the world that we live in right now, and that we're kind of used to. This term here, product team, in Scrum, I grabbed this off the web. Now, a warning that I was going to write a short presentation, but I didn't have time, so I got a long one. Using the words of who was it that said that? I was going to write a short letter, but I didn't have time, so I wrote a long one.
Was it George? What's his name? Someone will remember.
Yeah, been attributed to a couple of people, but anyway, yeah. So this is a very much a presentation that's in beta mode. I was busy up working on it till the last second, so this is a little rough around the edges and might be a little tedious, but so apologies. But let's see what we get. So yeah, I wanted to start with this one before I start bashing what's been, because really this comes from the Agile Manifesto, and I really want to highlight this word uncovering, that we are uncovering better ways of developing software. And it's a process, and it's an ongoing process. So when the Agile Manifesto was written, it was never meant to be static, a static process. So even though those principles are still, have relevance today, this is the real essence behind it, is that this continual process of discovery. So let's go through that journey of how do we get to modern product management, and I'm going to take us through the Agile era. So we're going to talk about Agile, Lean Startup, the return of product managers, and product over projects, a couple of the topics we'll hit. So let's go way back in time, when 1970, So this is pre-agile, and really project is king. Like we worked on projects and we would do these phases of requirements gathering, product specifications, and these are some of the words on the left that are, associated with that way of working. Big design up front, requirements gathering, and so forth. So a project manager would be, fairly much responsible for doing that, that kind of work. So that wasn't working so well for software. So a bunch of clever people got together in 2001, so around the turn of the millennium there, and they said, hey, there's a better way to do software, and they wrote the Agile Manifesto. And so this was kind of the birth of Agile. These are some of the words that we got from that era, like the product owner. This comes from Scrum specifically. Incremental delivery, on-site customer from XP, and user story from XP. Now I've highlighted some of the words here over on the right from the Agile Manifesto, where we got business people and developers working together throughout the project. So this project word is still there, and we build projects. So yeah, so now we've got developers working with business people. So notice that there's still one level of separation away from users, and I say users here because we've got user story. But at this point, so project is still king. But what we're noticing, it's the biggest problem we had to solve, the nut to crack, I think, at this point in time, was delivery. So the software industry was not able to deliver on software projects. And so we came up with this new way of working that made us better at delivering on software projects. And I think we've done a good job on that. For the most part, we've kind of got a lot better at delivery. Some other highlights that our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. There's the word deliver again, delivery, and we deliver. So this focus on delivery. And I want to highlight the words of customer here. So we satisfy the customer through delivery, and we're trying to create a competitive advantage for the customer. So what does the word customer mean? Or what did it mean here? So if we're delivering to a customer and the customer's competitive advantage, does that mean, yeah, what does customer mean? It kind of hints more at the organization. And I know like XP was born during this period or slightly before, and their customer was Chrysler, right? They were building a payroll system for Chrysler. So they had the on-site customer, which meant that the delivery team, the XP team, was on-site with Chrysler, able to talk to business people. And that was the way that they were able to deliver software. So it's interesting that word of customer there was the company paying for the software, was the customer. So we as developers are like our own internal company, that we're making sure that the other company, the external company who's paying us, is happy. So they're our customer. So that was what we used to, use, how we used to use that word. Some of y'all will know John Reed here. I was wondering if he was going to be here. He's with Industrial Logic, and I just grabbed this off Twitter, and kind of captures to me, I think, what Agile is about. So start small, ship it. So this idea of like delivery, and it's good. It's a lot better than what we had, and it solved a lot of problems. Now let's fast forward. So this is now 2008. The Lean Startup, which is when the book was published. And this was start of I think where, Agile is starting to mature. And so this is the start of delivering the right thing over just delivery. So whilst we got good at delivery, then the real pain of like, oh man, we're delivering the wrong thing starts to hurt us. And I think the lean startup was part of this movement to find out, hey, how do we deliver the right thing instead of just delivering? This focus on delivering. And some of the words here will, around this era that have now, come into Agile: minimal viable product, the pivot, split testing or A/B testing, product market fit, build, measure, learn. A little quote there from Jason Knight, which I picked up from Twitter again, that the key promise of lean startup is that there's no point in efficiently building the wrong thing. And so they started this build, measure, learn feedback. It's interesting that Eric Ries himself, I don't know if you know, Eric was an XP developer. So Eric goes into this startup thinking that he's got the magic bullet, the silver hammer that's going to solve everything, which was XP. So now this XP guy shows up in a startup world, and we're doing all of the proper XP things, and then the startup doesn't work. And so this was his big aha, that hey, just delivery, just having this ability to deliver, right, as craftsmen, is not enough. Like, we really need more to our tool set to be able to deliver the right things and to understand and set ourselves up for success. So the startup world really started pushing us in a new direction. And the build circle there in the build, measure, learn cycle, that's really kind of where Agile fit. But there's a whole other parts to that of measure and learn, which weren't really put anywhere in the Agile manifesto. There was somewhat implicit, like it got talked about a lot, that hey, Agile will help us with product market fit because we've got these shorter cycles. That was a theory about it, but there was no kind of tool set or discussion on how to do that until people like Eric Ries and some others started talking about it. So this is why I've got the Jason Knight quotes there before. That came from this tweet here from John Cutler. He calls himself Cuttlefish on Twitter. And he's going to come up a little more often as we keep going through there. So whilst all this stuff is happening over on in lean startup, the Agile world is still focusing on delivery. We're getting better and better. We're inventing things like BDD, delivery pipelines, DevOps, infrastructure code. We're getting better and better and better at delivery. But delivery doesn't really answer, like, hey, are we delivering the right thing, as we mentioned. So around the same time, this guy here, I think he's the main inspiration. He was certainly, I read this book Inspired, which kind of was a big wake-up call for me. And this is, I'm feeling much sharing what I learned from Marty Kagan, and which led me down this hot path of modern product management. And you'll start to see these terms coming out, like it is now back as a term, right? Because before that it was always product owner. So product manager is coming back, feasible, viable, desirable, design is coming back, and product over project. So the language is changing. So I mentioned Marty. These are some other kind of rock stars I consider in this field of modern product management. That's Marty on the left. Over on the right is Teresa Torres. She lives in Portland, Oregon. So she's here in the Pacific Northwest. And a lot of you will know John Cutler. He's prolific on Twitter and Medium with his blogs. Another big name. So a lot of what I'll be talking about comes from these three. Okay, so modern product management versus Agile. And why am I saying versus? Well, because a lot of what these modern product managers found, or what they needed to do, they found that Agile actually wasn't helping them. So this is a quote from, this is some pulls from Kagan's book Inspired. And again, I apologize, this deck is a little wordy. As I said, I didn't have time to create a shorter deck, but I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. So the majority of companies I worked with Scrum, and that's probably still true today. But the same companies are consistently complaining about the lack of innovation and the long time it takes to make it from idea to customers' hands, which is interesting because that's what Agile was supposed to fix, right? Yet, whilst almost everyone today claims to be Agile, what we've just described is very much a waterfall process. So in fairness to engineers, which is us, they're typically doing as much Agile as we can, given the broader waterfall context. And you know, I think, you know, this is what companies like Leading Agile, Industrial Logic are out to, you know, improve this process, because, you know, there's a lot of like Agile lip service to Agile, or misunderstanding of what Agile can do. Like, we're not really seeing the returns on the promise, and so it's taking people like Kagan to call it out. So Kagan says there's essentially 3 ways for a product manager to work. So number 1 there is the backlog administrator, and that's the world we've came from, and that's what Agile, particularly Scrum, has created for us. So I'm going to rip on Scrum quite a lot. If you don't like that, feel free to drop off now. But but you'll hear why. And listen, Agile has done a great thing. So we've done the best what we could with what we knew at the time. So when Agile was born, it was there to solve the delivery problem. When Scrum was born, it was there to fulfill Agile. And so these things are 20 years old, and they worked for their time. But now, you know, so we're now starting to question about, is this right for us now? And so people like Kagan are saying, hey, this whole certified product owner thing, the way that work, it doesn't really help us with this problem of delivering the right thing. So he describes a roadmap administrator and I put in there the modern product manager. I put the word modern in front of product manager. The honest truth is that the product manager needs to be amongst the strongest talent in the company. So this whole new breed of this role or breed that's out there. So I'm hoping that I'm congruent here with your worldview here, Jason. I'll be curious to hear more on that later. So Teresa Torres was another person that I've discovered more recently, and here's what she says about, you know, Scrum. That this way of work ran into its challenges. That teams weren't part of it was, you know, teams weren't good at estimating unpredictable work, and well, there's a lot of talk about estimation and no estimation, and part of that challenge is the realization of complexity. Like estimating inside a complex environment just doesn't make sense, or you have to use something very different. And so you know, a lot of this is coming to light and being now recognized by modern product managers. And this whole old way of working, of like annual budget cycle, annual budgeting cycles, just doesn't work for what we need today. Some of the other issues were usability testing was often done late in the process. User research was outsourced, and teams are being measured by what they delivered, not what, if anything, useful was created for the customer. So as I said before, these were Agile was a giant step in the right direction, but it didn't solve all of our problems. So, you know, we need to grow into this new place. Instrumentation, however, did make us actually aware of this problem. We could now measure when we released a feature that nobody used. Okay, so I mentioned 3, so I'll finally highlight some things that Cutler has said. So Cutler talks about these digital product first companies as his example. They seem to be less grounded in the foundation of Scrum. So this is a little brutal, but you know, Agile lost to Scrum. sad, but I think we need to admit that and move on. So the promise of Scrum, sorry, the promise of Agile, I think Scrum has somewhat destroyed that or didn't get us there. This is Ron Jeffries saying, isn't that like saying sports lost to football? No, it's like saying we lost something crucial about football to the football industry. Yep, well said, says John Cutler. So there's different ways of thinking about product teams. This is by Sam Higham. I think that's the correct pronunciation. I'm going to go into these because I think this is kind of describes, you know, where we're at and how we got here. So this pattern here is what we're most used to, and this came from the agile transformation world, where all communications are still through management. Like you get this big management circle in the middle, but unfortunately, there's lots of process and very little progress. So this is an anti-pattern that, and so product managers are calling this out now. They're saying, hey, Scrum is not really helping us. Like you coming in with your agile transformation, and this is what you're dumping on us. So there's different patterns we're trying to move out into now, like design as a service, and he describes the challenges that come with these. A dominant discipline pattern, where here's like product is king and design engineering, you know, just have to follow along. That's not an uncommon one we see. Product fed, so everyone's the same, but now we're heavily siloed and we've got to feed our dependencies amongst them. But now we'll be collaborative in name only. Collaboration, sort of. Everyone vaguely understanding what everyone is doing. So we're trying to collaborate, but here in the modern product management world, we are going to collaborate and we're going to work very closely. We're all equals, and we work extremely closely together. So this is the nirvana space that these modern product managers have identified and are trying to get us to. So how do we get there? What does that look like for you as a developer? Yeah, just highlighting again, this is the world that Agile and Scrum got us to. So the other words that we saw is product versus project. So we're moving out of projects now into products. And what does that mean? That means we're talking about output now and not outcome. And there's some examples here of what outcomes we're looking for. And you know, OKRs is the buzzword right now in the business industry. Again, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we know at the time. I think OKRs is a step in the right direction. I think how they're implemented is not great, but it's better than nothing. I think, but you know, we're moving this in our language and our understanding towards a more outcome view. Where if you remember, Agile was delivery, and now we're going towards outcome. So this is the big. Agile was project, and modern product management is product. So we're now talking about products and outcomes. So there's some examples there about a business outcome is retention. A product outcome is, hey, the dogs who like the food. So we measure how much the product drives the business value. So hey, we make cars. Well, you know, do people actually use our cars or like our cars? Traction metrics, the specific features. Are they buying the cars because it has autonomous driving, right? Is that our differentiator? And so we need to know what those traction metrics are. And these are the kind of activities that product managers do and think about. And let's see what that means for us as developers. So the other thing now is roadmaps. So this was popular, and I remember teaching this as I used to be a co-trainer for Scrum training, and you know, we'd talk about roadmaps. So we care less. These modern product managements care less about roadmaps than because they communicate this false sense of certainty. And this idea that we can plan everything up front, it goes back to that big design up front paradigm, right? We could plan everything up front. Here's the roadmap. We deliver on this. We get to the end. We're going to push it out, and we're going to make millions of dollars. That's the false, the place that roadmaps can get us. The other big change is customers. So, and I brought out the Agile Manifesto before. I was highlighting those words on customer. So, you know, in Agile Manifesto, it really kind of shows a B2B mindset where, you know, us as developers are our business, and the customer is the outside business, almost like we're an outsourced developer, and they're paying us for this software. So this B2B mindset of customer. And if you notice that one of the words that came out during that period was a user story. So now there's this distinction between a customer and a user. So what we called the end user is a user, whereas a customer was who's paying for the software. In this modern world, though, it's more of a B2C mindset. So even when we're in a B2B environment, the focus is always on the customer, like as the end customer. Because if we're not serving the people who are actually consuming it, you know, that's you know, we're not really doing the right thing anyway. So the big focus now is the customer is king, the end user. I say end user, but the word customers has changed what it means during this period. So, okay, roadmaps, we don't want those. We want to now get close to the customer. So the customer is king, not the business anymore. And now there's two new types of work. Anyone want to call it out? We got two new types of work, and essentially, and as developers, are you aware of this? Because I wasn't, right? But there's now discovery work and delivery work. And so, you know, if you end up being part of a modern product team, and I haven't, right? So this is all theory to me. So I'm talking theory to you all. But after I read this stuff, I'm like, I really, really want to work in a product team as an engineer. Because this, you know, I've been doing what I've been doing for a good 20 plus years, and you know, I'm ready for something new. Like, this looks really exciting. I'd love to work as an engineer in a modern product team. So if you do find yourself in that, there's now two types of work, because most of the work we have been doing as engineers is delivery work, right? Which is over there on the right. We do epics, features, stories, there, right? With this big output focus, again, the word velocity, and the focus here is predictability. We use a lot of lean metrics, throughput, velocity. Work is defined before started on. Quality is important, which, you know, that's a big part of what we do as crafters. But there's still this very much a delivery mindset, right? We're going to get it out there. We're going to get it out there. Now, don't throw that baby out with the bathwater, because you still, if you end up in a modern product manager product team, you still do delivery work, but you're also going to do discovery work, and you need to know when you're going to be moving between the two. So discovery work is finding out, hey, what is the right thing we should be working on? And it's interesting that engineers are actually involved in that. So discovery work, we talk about things like opportunities, bets, and outcomes, right? Not epics, features, and stories. So discovery work will find out what the stories are. Over here, we're going to be talking to customers, rapid prototyping, where quality doesn't matter so much over here. And that was a big aha for Eric Ries, you know, coming from the school of XP, where, you know, quality was king. But over here in this world, if we're doing rapid prototyping and I'm going to run an experiment and run it out to 1% of our customers, product really, the quality doesn't matter. Obviously, there's a bar we can't go below, like we can't be losing money every second. But yeah, the idea of quality is not so important over here when you're working in this mode, and you're going to be determining on what experiments are, how to roll them out. And very much you're moving between an experiment mindset, which is why I find this exciting, because it gives me as an engineer a whole new world that I haven't been a part of.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
can I just a mention on that? It was really interesting to see the differentiation between the two, because I looked at those two and I thought it's just work.
Right.
I think working on maybe not a fully mature XP team, of quality crafting developers and that sort of thing, but we're really close, or we're doing really well in that area. And like the discovery versus the sorry, what was it, the
Delivery.
deployment, the delivery, like
Yeah.
it smashes back and forth between the, like, oh, we got to figure this out, let's go figure it out, and then we
Right.
write the good delivery, right? And so there's there's definitely not a silo or a split between the two. It's all just part of the work.
Yes. And when you are in a modern product team, it is all work, which is kind of cool. And but being aware of when you're working on one or the other, and really a lot of the discovery work is finding out, hey, this work now is ready for delivery. And so quite often, that might go to a delivery team. And my entire life has been working on a delivery team. I think the nearest I got to discovery work was over at Ripple with Shai there. I was kind of excited to be like working with a startup. I'm like, hey, we can get closer to discovery work. I know Shai's got a lot more experience there. But yeah, this is a Kagan quote. What we're really seeing in Agile is for delivery. Rest of organization and context is anything but Agile. So these guys are kind of complaining that.
One quick thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked what Paige was saying just quickly, because I think, Agile really done could maybe get close to some of this. But like one thing I'm learning from Marty Kagan is it's not like if you have a roadmap, like 50 to 80% of that's not going to be useful at all, he would say.
Right. Yes.
Well, you just have to, and how many organizations are just willing to throw out most of the roadmap and go to the, like not many in my experience, so
no.
That's where the emphasis on discovery
Mm-hmm.
is so missing, and so much of what I've run across, at least.
Yeah, we're in a really exciting time. So just as Agile was new in the turn of millennium, what we're talking about here is new, and we're talking about a very small handful of companies that are doing it. Like, this is exciting. Like if you can get involved with this and start thinking and working this way, you're now on the bleeding edge of where we're going. And that's kind of why I want to share this, because these are where I'm going to get to is what the skill sets for you as engineers, who the majority of people here, what you need to start understanding and knowing if we're going to be successful in that environment. And I'm not sure it's going to be right for all of the engineers as well, because there's certain things you'll be doing that you may not want to do, and that's fine. Like you can stay over in veer away from discovery and stay in delivery. So here's where the term feature factory comes from. Anyone familiar with that one? So this is what these modern product managers are calling the old pattern, where, hey, we get the roadmap and there's the features and we've got to get these features out, and getting features out is how we make money. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So startups know that that's not necessarily true, but yeah, so the pattern that I've always worked in for the entirety of my software career has been working in this feature factory, right? Working in a backlog, things like acceptance criteria, user stories, estimations, definition done. This is all around this idea of delivery and feature factories. Just get these features out, right? Because it's going to make us money. So here's I'm not going to beat up too much on where am I at? 40 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to beat up too much more on Scrum, but you can see here's John Cutler comparing Scrum to what modern product teams do, right? Scrum is a product owner. In these new worlds, we have a product manager. Scrum, the product owner writes tickets. In modern product management, the team handles tasking. So there's a lot more ownership that happens, which is why I think it's a lot more exciting too. That's that my mouse has died. Did I miss a slide? No. So some of you will know Matt Varcom too. He I don't know if he's still at. He is. Yeah, he's still at Industrial Logic. He's someone that really understands this modern world. Here's one of his comments. Product roadmaps found to have hallucinogenic effects on 9 out of 10 executives. And kind of similar to what you're saying, Jason, that yeah, most of that roadmap, these modern product managers get it. Like most of that roadmap you're asking for is stupid. There's a, we don't need that. How do we determine what does need to be in and what doesn't? All right, let's go a bit faster forward. So outcome versus output. In outcome, you're going to be solving problems and looking for business results versus just getting stuff out there. So even now in this world where we're talking about outcomes and OKRs, we still aren't really good at it. We're still very, very good at delivery focus. Okay, so what is a product manager product team? So if you find yourself on a product team, it includes designers, engineers, and the product manager. And Teresa Torres will talk about a trio, working in a trio. So if you find yourself in that pattern, you will be the one engineer working very closely with a designer and the product manager. Now, all three of you are equal, and all three of you are working very closely together. The pattern here is discovery, continuous discovery, versus what's over on the other side of the world, which we know pretty well. So, okay, what does it look like then being in this modern project management team? So this is kind of where I wanted to prep you for as an engineer. So you're no longer just a code monkey, right? Which is what we do today. Hey, here's a story, go deliver on it. We're now going to move towards this highly collaborative space where product design engineering works side by side. So above there, Kagan is saying what the old model we've come from is where a product manager defines everything, a designer designs it. So it's a very stage gate kind of thing, and then engineers implements them. No, that's not how it works over here in this new world. So yeah, I really wanted to highlight that discovery and delivery do happen in parallel, and you'll be switching between them at any point in time. So
Ben, I already met. We had a great one. We had a great conversation. I think we chatted for an hour at least.
Yeah.
So
set up a conversation for you to meet with Jed, who's the chief customer officer.
Right. So what we think of as work has really changed as well. So remember, we've got backlogs and roadmaps. So what are we going to replace that with? And this is the way Teresa Torres likes thinking about work, with this opportunity solution tree. And so work becomes, you'll hear work as being a bet or an outcome or an opportunity. So it's not a story or a feature anymore, because we don't know what they are. We're trying to find out what the features are that we should be building, what the stories are that we should be building. So what's the work that we're going to do to get there, and how do we represent that work? So this is the equivalent of a backlog in this modern product management world. It's not called a backlog, and I like this because it captures complexity. And some of you will recognize this from fast agile with discovery mapping, and that this pattern came, Teresa's work weighed in heavily with that. I'm going to touch on fast a little later as well. So this is the kind of work that you'll be looking at. You'll be trying to come up with what are these experiments that we're going to be running, those orange things down the bottom, and they all roll up to a desired outcome. So we get given an outcome as a product team, and we say, hey, all right, how do we deliver on that outcome? And off we go. And so we work out what are the opportunities, what are the solutions, what are the experiments, and they're the kind of work that you'd be doing in those. Now, once those experiments start paying out, so part of those experiments, you'll be writing code, you'll be pushing things into production, but maybe only running out to 1% of the code of your customer base, right? Because these are experiments. When we're doing, it's a lot of A/B testing. You're going to get good at that, and ways of thinking about your code as a hypothesis. Like, hey, what are we trying to experiment here? What would prove that this is working? You're also going to start talking with customers. Imagine that, instead of this model here where we've got this expert that knows how to deal with the goddamn customers. That sits between us. So if you look at remember the Agile Manifesto, we've got dev people talking to business people, and then you got the customer over on the other side. So now we're moving that, we're removing a layer, and you're going to be talking to actual customers, probably weekly. And the side effect of that is you're going to gain a greater empathy for these customers, because you're going to be talking to them. So I've started doing this with some of my colleagues, and this is an actual experience map that I created. So you're going to be learning these new skills. You got to start like learning how to draw. Don't be afraid of it. Like, these stick figures are fine, and you're going to be doing these things like experience maps, and then you're going to be merging them together. There's 3 of us, and then we merged these together into one experience map. And now with this experience map, we've now got something that we're now ready to talk to customers. And so we're doing this as a little exercise where I'm working now. And the exercise is, so we're trying to build up a muscle skill that I've never used before, but it's something that I want to do, because I want to work in a product team at some point as an engineer. And so this is what we're using, and we'll be using this to talk to customers. So next week I'll be actually talking to someone who is maybe looking at purchasing or has purchased a PV, which is a solar roofing system. I missed a bunch of slides, which is some really good quotes. Let's see if I can find it around. Kagan. He's talking about what it means to be an engineer. The Kagan was the first one. I think this is why I got so excited, because I read Kagan's book first, and he's basically saying that, hey, your product engineer, they need to be involved with this, because they're just as good at innovation as anyone else. And that's kind of been, to me, that was so exciting to hear that we as developers have been finally recognized as being more than just a code monkey. That, hey, we do have ideas. Hey, we can innovate on stuff too. Let us, put us closer to what you're trying to do, rather than telling us what to do, right? Don't feed us these stories and say, hey, churn out code. Tell us what you're trying to do. And in user stories, that's what it was always supposed to be. Like, I want this so that, the so that part of it. But, at that point, it was already a done deal. Like, you didn't get to really question anymore. Did I have it in here? Engineers are helping daily on discovery.
Ron Shy has a question.
Oh, go Shy.
Sorry, it's not a question, it's a comment. I did want to underscore maybe the core theme of what you're talking about, that symbiotic or integrated approach between engineering, product design, visual design, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The company I'm leaving has gone through a variety of personnel changes over the past several years, and So, in fact, in basically in not the development team. So everywhere else, everything's shifted, and so the devs, we can sort of see, oh, product org changed this way, and I say org, it's like 3 people, right? And you know, design team, which is like 2 people, changed this way, and you can see their different individual capabilities, strengths, weaknesses, what have you, and how that influences the sort of unified work, right? It, like, hypothetically, let's say, you know, the product manager is a little bit more old school, a little bit more, maybe, I think one of the earlier slides used the word strong, so not that. And so you get like different things happening with the work, right? So I definitely think that all components of this new style of work, or you know, I call it new, maybe it's not 100% new, need emphasis and are valuable. Like the other thing I'd note is that with all of these things, the devil does come down to the details. You know, takes time for experiments to go. It, you know, how, you know, there's so, like, when the rubber hits the road, it gets really stressful. But but that's also the fun part, right? That's the challenge.
Right.
So.
Thanks for sharing that, Shai, because you're sharing what it. So Shai's sharing firsthand experience, what it feels like to be an engineer in this world. And yeah, it's not all fun and games, but neither is it software development, right? So it's a different stress of like, and I think Teresa Torres described this quite well, because you're exposed with like 20 different experiments that we can run, and you're never going to have time to run all 20 of those. So it's a matter of like, hey, which one of these is most likely to work? Which ones do we have time to do? Because we do need to get something out there, right? You can't be doing discovery work for a year to go, oh, now we finally got right, because you got to be able to move quick. And so there's a whole skill set in that.
Yeah, I would also add to what you just said, Ron, that I suspect that there's a key component of that process. Like, we have 40 things or 10 things to do, but what are the best ones? That not only can be answered by the team in a collaborative way, but that's where the wisdom and insights of a healthy and functional leadership, or set of leaders, can not necessarily make decisions, although maybe they have to, but they can ask questions and set the stage and give context such that, you know, it maybe supply reinforcements of vision or what have you, to pick from the 10 things, the 1 or maybe 2 that actually time will be spent on.
Yeah, there's a whole skill set involved in picking those. Now, and when you mention leaders, I'd probably use the word stakeholder more, and that's kind of what's come from the old agile world. You know, we talk about stakeholders, and typically the business owners are a big part of that. And in the modern product management world, a lot of the time those product managers are actually having to convince stakeholders that they're wrong. And so they have to come up with the tools of, like, say, these are the experiments we've run, and this is why I'm suggesting this one. I hear you want that one, but here's why I'm suggesting this one. And this is the data around it, why this one is a better thing. And so because there's a blind spot that stakeholders, particularly owners, have, is they're in love with a certain solution. And if you've got to move them off that, you know, that's a skill that these modern product managers need to have. I wonder if you've hit that one, Jason, or you've ever had to say, hey, this thing you're asking for, we shouldn't be doing that.
I mean, I think maybe we're in similar places, you know, when I'm trying to transition from the old to the new, and, you know, I have a lot to learn, you know, so.
It's exciting, isn't it? Like, it's kind of like going from waterfall to agile. It's like, wow, there's all this new stuff to learn, and there's all these new skills and tools that we're gonna have to learn and pick up, and they're gonna change and grow as we go along.
I also think, Ron, you need to put in there, it's a lot of work, and I don't mean it's like personal work at learning to be a team and learning, you know, I want to talk about psychological safety and that sort of thing. And we're kind of talking about that in the chat a little about introverts, extroverts, but it's like this whole switch is a mindset switch that we can't just say, okay, we're going to do it.
Right.
You know, okay, we're going to be agile, right? You know, how well does that work?
You don't get to flip the switch. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't just require it from the developers, but from the company as well.
Right. Yeah, it's a big change. And that's why I'm excited that we're here at this early stage, and this gives us an opportunity to be on that leading edge. And I was lucky that in the agile world, that was in a similar spot, that, you know, I learned about XP when it was not cool, right? There was only like a handful of people in the whole country doing it. And but that's the kind of time to get involved with something like at that early stage. So this could be a competitive advantage for you as a developer to start understanding these things now. If it's something that you're interested in working on in a product team, like and a product team by the early modern product team that we're getting to. So what can you do now is go read those books and start asking why. So when you get given a story or a feature, say, hey, why am I working on this? And like, be tactful about it. But, you know, why are we adding this feature? Like, what is the desired outcome of this feature? What data do you have to support that hypothesis? Okay, so with this feature, what metrics will we be measuring once this feature is in production, that we know that it's doing what we expect it to do? So these are questions that we can start asking now and helping our product or our company start thinking about these things now. So I'll give you an example. One of the features that my team were asked to work on was there's an input field where you put our end users put in their address, and so the feature request was, hey, can we do like autocomplete of addresses, which, you know, a lot of us are really used to now, and using that, it's extremely helpful and it's great. Now there's a lot of pain and issues in the current product I'm working on, and I agree that this thing should get done. But then my question is like, well, why? Why are we doing this? Like, why? What would make you convinced that this was successful? Like, is this, you know, what outcome are we looking for, right? Are we looking to solve the user's pain? Is that our highest priority right now? Yes. Okay. So how did this one get prioritized over else? What are the experiments? Okay, that one. Now, if they can answer that, that's useful information for me as a developer. Like, now I've got total belief. Yeah, this is why we're doing it. But we don't. We just get thrown stories and they say, hey, here, code monkey, go code, right? Okay. Why is it taking so long, code monkey? Because it's complicated. But you said it's 2 story points. It's more because it's, right? That's the world that I am bored of, right? Whereas, you know, give me this, tell me, you know, let me work together with you. Let us work together and function as a team. Don't treat me as a code monkey. I'm tired of that. The other things we can start doing, and this comes from Teresa Torres. Yeah.
Sorry, Franz has his hand up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I'm happy to wait till, I want to make sure that you can finish what you're talking about now. So I'm happy to wait till the end.
All right, you okay to wait for the end? I'm just going to charge right through.
Yeah, please.
There's only like one section, and then your question number one. So yeah, Teresa Torres says, yeah, find customers that you can talk to yourself, right? And I've actually done that. So the organization I'm working for sells these very large mechanical things, and I found someone that I know that actually bought one. So I'm going to go talk to them. They, hey, they actually used the website that I'm part of. Hey, what was it like using this website? What did you like? What didn't you like? Why did you pick this big automated thing that we sell? So I find that exciting. So that's something that we can do now. And I'm going to really quickly touch on fluid scaling technology, or fast agile, and how modern product management relates to fast. So fast was born, I like to say this, it was born in the age of disruption, and it was made in and for the age of disruption. Scrum is 20 years old, right? Scrum was born in a very different age. So when we created Fast, I really wanted to embed. I didn't know I was going to do that. I really wanted to embed modern product management in Fast, so that Fast would become the de facto choice for modern product managers. And here's what the world currently looks like over there, according to Scrum. And over there on the right, this image comes from John Cutler of what a modern product management team and how a modern product manager works in this environment. And this is kind of really where I was hoping Fast would fit in and kind of match that pattern. Whereas that product team in Fast, we used to call it a tribe, we now call it a collective, but we're all in there together. We're all in this, hey, give us the opportunities, we're going to work through them. We're going to work through the discovery work and the delivery work. And we've got people in here that know how to do both and move between them. Yeah, and so I'm going to close it at that and go over to questions.
You can't just put up this slide and not tell us what it is.
Well, yeah, I found this one on Twitter too. Yeah. So John Cutler is all right. So John Cutler is a modern product manager, and Holub is a code crafter, right? So I put this one up here because we're all code crafters, and we all think like Holub, right? But now we need to start understanding Cutler more. And so this is we need to start growing and stretching in this place, and to say we need things that Holub approves of and Cutler approves of, right? So and if you look along the Holub axis, he's talking about the Agile Manifesto, but then on Cutler has got these things like read about feature factory safety, which is stuff that Holub doesn't that's not necessarily something that he understands yet. So he hasn't moved into this modern product management world. But so this kind of shows the canvas of our broader understanding of like, hey, what does it mean for us as engineers now in this new world? I don't know if it's right for everyone either, like, because in this world, you'll be talking to customers, and there is a lot of introverts in the software world. And if I don't like making people uncomfortable on purpose. So, if you don't want to talk to customers, don't work on this side of the world. You can still work on delivery. There's still loads and loads of delivery, and the two work very closely. But if you do want to start learning a new skill and stretching yourself, I found it totally fascinating when I started to talk to actual customers. They say things that you did not expect. You're like, wow, and your empathy level just grows, like shoots up. And there's a lot of talk now about empathy in software. So the best way I know of to get empathy in software is you, as an engineer, have an actual conversation with the actual customer, and you'll probably do it in a trio. You'll be doing it there, even if you'll be mostly listening into what the product manager says and the designer. But you're there, and you're like, wow, this is cool. All right, France.
Thanks.
Can I turn this off now?
I just wanted to say that this is really awesome. So I feel like I'm learning all kinds of new stuff that I didn't know about, and thank you very much for telling us about it. I'm definitely going to dig into this further. But I raised my hand besides that to say that I'm feeling a little confused about something, which is your distinction between discovery and delivery. Sort of in the middle of the talk, it seems like you were, distinguishing between two kinds of teams, that there'd be a discovery team and a delivery team, and that at some point the discovery team might, what I would interpret it anyway, sort of throwing work over the wall to the delivery team, which sounds kind of waterfally to me and made me uneasy. But later on, it seemed like you were talking about the product team would do both, which to me seems much more agile. So I'm hoping you could clarify that.
Yeah, there's two types of work, discovery work and delivery work. And most of what we've done as agile developers has been delivery work. And Scrum doesn't have this concept of discovery work, right? Scrum was set up for delivery. And so we worked in delivery teams. They've even called it that. So now if you work in a modern product management team, you're not throwing delivery out, but now you're doing delivery and discovery work. So two types of work. And I guess the two types of team is a product team and a delivery team. And if you find yourself in a product team as an engineer, you'll be doing discovery and delivery, whereas an engineer in a delivery team, you're doing just delivery. And so I think even in like more modern product companies, they still have delivery teams, because if you're discovering work at a rate fast enough, you're going to need multiple teams to work on it. So there's still work, loads of work for us delivery team people. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I don't know that I completely agree. I feel like you're being a little harder on sort of old school Agile than is warranted. I mean, I've heard Agile often described as being all about maximizing learning, and one of Ken Beck's 4 values in the original XP book is feedback, and there's so much stuff in there. I mean, the whole point of Scrum's sprint reviews is, again, showing the customer what you've got so far, asking
the customer or the
there's so much feedback, and all that to me seems like discovery. So I feel like if you're saying Scrum is just about delivery, that to me feels more like, well, how we're using what we're calling Scrum now, but not what Scrum was trying to be.
I agree. I think a lot of that, well, and this is what these modern product managers are saying, like the promise of Agile, we never really got it. It's become, and that's mostly because Agile went in a certain direction where it shouldn't have. And so they're saying, well, let's not do that. Let's find other things to do. But there's still relevance in that. And your point about Scrum, like the demos, you're demoing it internally to stakeholders, and this is the big change in modern product management. Like you're never demoing, you're actually running experiments with actual customers. That's the demonstration, and you're gathering data. And now with that data, now you're creating your next hypothesis and your next one, until you've got to the point where you go, yeah, this is an absolute must-have feature. This is going to differentiate us from our customer. If this works, these are the metrics that we should see. These are the leading and lagging metrics that we should see, which would prove our hypothesis. Now that is what I should be, that's what a modern product manager would be talking to their stakeholders about. These are the experiments we've been running this week, and this is where we're leaning towards, this is what we've been discovering. So it's a big shift away from showing working software, like, yeah, we did these features, and let's talk about the backlog. So I guess that's the bigger change, that you're not there to please stakeholders. You're there to please customers. Customer is king. Customer obsessed, it comes from Amazon, and that's the big change as a developer in this world. We care about the customer. So the business comes up with hypothesis or what's important to them, and then we're going to come up with, hey, how do we as a very creative, inventive team, how do we resolve the customer's pain, their desires, or their needs that are feasible and viable for our company as well. So there's this, it's a lot more complex solution space. Yeah, I don't want to throw Agile out. Like, and they even said, Agile was leaps and bounds ahead of what we had before, and it solved the problem of its day, but it's not solving the problem. It just moved the problem space further, in that we don't know. Now the pain is, how do we know what to build, and how do we stop delivering the wrong thing? So that's where the pain points moved, and that's why we're getting these new understandings, these new experiments on ways of working.
At the risk of not wasting too much time, but I still think you're being unfair to Agile. To me, what you're describing sounds like a return to the roots, not a new thing.
I think it's where Agile should have gone. And Agile did make that promise. And you read about it, and it's like, all right, so I'll ask the people here, right? How many times have you been to the Scrum ceremony at the end, the sprint sprint demo. If you read the Scrum guide, what's supposed to happen there is you're supposed to discuss the backlog and go, all right, now with what we've understood here, let's look at the backlog. Well, let's change this thing. Never seen that happen, right? Ever. So I think it meant well, but it never got the right muscle skills for it to pull it off. I think we're still so focused on here's the roadmap, let's deliver on it, that we never went, hey, we can actually change it. And why would we change it? So why you would change it is because you've put it in front of a real customer and you've seen how they use it. And oh my goodness, they're using it different to us. So me doing a demo to a stakeholder is not a demo to a customer. It's very different. And I've never been part of that. I know probably Shai has, working at a startup, but I've never been part of, hey, how's that A/B test going? Does that look like something? I'm a dev. What would I know? You're a code monkey. Go away, right? All of that's been like hidden behind this curtain, and not exposed to us as a business. Is the business even thinking about that? This whole split testing is still fairly new. There's not many companies doing that, and yet there's a tool set right there which says, are we testing our assumptions? Is this feature actually valuable?
So Ron, Mark's had his hand up for quite a while.
Go on.
Yeah, thanks. So I'll try to condense this as much as I can because it's intimately related to a talk that I've been working on anyway. But I think there's I guess a couple of main points that you're bringing up. And one of them is, it bugs me a lot, and it's related to methodologies. Waterfall, agile, all these things, they're methodologies, they're tools. They're things that you can apply to different situations, and they are not the perfect tool for every situation.
Right.
And there are trends in what gets used. And those trends evolve over time, and the tools that were used in the past aren't always adequate for the current times. And that's not necessarily because nobody was able to come up with these ideas in the past, but because those ideas weren't as applicable to the situation, the environment that they were in at the time. And so now we're seeing businesses tend to follow trends. There's a way that business is done in general. And a result of that is that the project management needs to shift with those, shifting business demands. And so Agile is a nice tool set. It's, there have been a lot of writings about it that it does a lot of nice things, but it's not a perfect tool because our environment has shifted a little bit. Things are growing and evolving. And so I think this relates intimately with the quote about the product managers need to be among the strongest talent in the company. It riles me a little bit. I think the project managers need to be some of the strongest talent in product management in the company. They need to recognize which tools are appropriate for the environment that they're in and apply those to the specific unique situation, because it is unique. And there's a lot that ties into that. And then the other side of what you're talking about is related to like how engineers, how people who are building things relate to the customer and relate to the requirements, because you see that across industries. If the information is filtered through someone who doesn't have the same level and depth of knowledge as the person who's going to build it, something's going to be missed. You'll get a salesperson that understands, maybe they understand 90% of it, but if there's that 10% that needs to be translated directly to the engineer, then there's a huge missed opportunity there. And so making sure that the flow of information isn't impaired by people who don't have the depth of understanding is going to be critical. And that's going to vary depending on the kind of thing that you're trying to deliver. It's going to vary depending on the corporate setup, the customer setup. And so that needs to be adapted, that information flow needs to be adapted to those unique situations. I loved the discovery versus delivery work. I think that's an interesting way to divide things up. It's an interesting way to look at things. I again don't think it's the the perfect tool for all situations, but I think it is a valuable way to look at things if you are having challenges with some of that information flow and with some of that separation. But many more ranty things I could say, but I think I'll cut it off there. But definitely interesting ideas that you're presenting. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm known for pushing buttons and breaking some eggs. So I'm never going to say anything that can please everyone, and that's okay, because if you're pushing new boundaries, you can't drag the world along with you as well. So that's how we learn. Like we try new things, but you're right that not everyone should be trying new things, because you've got to be in that right space for that. And most of as you said, most companies are going to do most of what other companies are doing, right? Because there's a bell curve and there's the average there, and that's just fine for them. That's where they need to be, right? Particularly if you're, because I see Agile right now is in the laggard phase. These companies in their laggard phase there, you're not going to give them modern product management. The best thing they can do is get to where Agile was 20 years ago, right? That's the next phase of consciousness that they're getting to. So all these skills that we have now and what we're doing now, it's still relevant. But I'm really excited about the bleeding new world, bleeding edge of where we're going to.
Awesome. I think it's now Prague.
You gotta have to
You're on mute.
Okay, good. I was testing that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. I'll just put a little comment about the discovery versus delivery, and then actually ask my question. But I just see this of us realizing, going back to the roots of scientific method, which was how experimenters have always worked.
Right.
The whole space of software engineering is a knowledge worker space. If the code already existed, if the problem were already solved, we tend to reuse it, or there's a product out there, maybe we don't know it exists, and then we build it ourselves. But it's something that you don't know, and so you have to experiment. If you knew, then there's someone else has already done it. So I just see this going back to those same roots. But I do love, Ron, your putting a stamp of endorsement on this, because I do feel like we're going the wrong way with just go to Jira and this is my day of work as a developer, as an engineer, and I don't even know why I'm building this stuff, and then I spent 2 years of my life and I see, well, that wasn't really what they wanted, and I'm like, that's when
frustrating.
It's the big frustration. Yeah.
Well,
one other comment you had made earlier was about if you're in a company that you do both. I think it was in response to the question, you need to do both discovery and delivery. I agree. And if you're in a company that does a lot of discovery, or the rate of idea creation is very high, then you'll need a lot of delivery. I think most companies are like that. I think the rate of idea creation is very high usually, because you don't have to execute, you don't have to test your hypotheses, and whereas experimenting, but in general a 90% failure rate with research and development is that's a 10% success rate, right? That's a good batting average, if you will. It's not bad. So what I'm not seeing is enough of an economic driven rubric that could say, okay, based on economics of what my company needs here and now, these ideas are worthy of experimentation. These are the outcomes if I could achieve, and then this is a set of experiments that will be the most profitable in this time frame.
Yeah.
The time frame part is important because there's always tech debt, because if you did purely economics, you'd say, don't ever worry about tech debt, just ignore it, and eventually you get caught. So I think that's one thing that's a gap in our industry, or maybe I'm not aware of, is how do I prioritize discovery, delivery, and even within delivery, the order in which that delivery occurs from an economic standpoint.
Yes. Right. Yeah, that's always been a challenge. Like, hey, of these features, which one, we always have deliver the highest value first. How do you measure value? Like, what makes this one more valuable than that? I mean, what tools, and we got told that back in the turn of the millennium, deliver the highest value first. By the way, Agile Manifesto, how do you measure value? Right? How do I know which one's going to make more money than the other? So we weren't given that tool set, and I think we're still trying to discover that. There is some things out there to determine that, but there's still a dark art. Get your crystal ball out, and yeah.
And it depends who assesses that value and with what
Right.
rubric. And then you have the other thing that we're all humans, so we game the system.
Yeah.
Even
now what we can measure, right, and this is what the modern product managers are finding, is we can now measure what people love and what they don't love. I can measure that, and that's useful information for a company. How much money is this going to make? That's a guess. That's only ever going to be a guess. But now if I know, hey, of these 5 experiments we run, the companies love this one here is feasible and it's viable, right, based on our estimates, our forecasting, and this one people love the most, right? So of those 5 experiments, we're going to do that. Or so this is how we start moving, and maybe like a stakeholder will go, hey, well, let's run this other experiment as well, because I think that one can make us more money than this one. We go, great. And so now we're doing multiple parallel probes, and this is the what we're moving into. Whereas, where did that ever happen in Agile? Like, you did parallel probes. We've got A and B running at the same time, and seeing how, oh, look at that. This one is going to make us more money. Let's pull this one. We're going to switch over to that one. It's guesswork, isn't it? And that's why they call it bets now, because you're literally placing a bet.
That's true.
Yeah, there's no certainty, and that was the joke of the roadmap. It conveyed a feeling of certainty to it. And if we got the right product manager that gave us the right product roadmap, we would make money at the end, right? But that's not true anymore. Now we know that.
Roadmap without dates.
Well, and I think that's why I like the outcome space that Teresa Torres talks about, is to say, what is the outcome we're after, and when do we call this outcome done? Like, what is the goal of this outcome? And if it's a financial outcome, yeah, then the goal is to get to there in a year. But if it took us a year and a half, is that terrible? Right. So, and of course, we're checking in all along the way. If we're coming towards the end of the year and we're nowhere near that, we're like, hey, we're totally off track. And this is where we pivot as in the startup world, and we've got all these other new tools and understandings now.
Good, thanks.
George has his hand up.
Yeah, a little background and a thing is that I've been on 5 XP teams, and almost all of them actually had the retrospective make changes. And I consider that, because I did that before I did any Scrum, and to me that was the definition of agility. One of the great quotes is that you can tell how agile you are by how many changes you make to your process, right? Yep. I've been on uncountable numbers of Scrum teams, and it's the Scrum certification and all this jazz, they don't push for the change part. Retrospectives are sort of a stupid ceremony, and nothing happens. And I guess my complaint is we seem to bash Agile because it doesn't work, when in my opinion we aren't doing it.
Yeah, I totally, yes, yes.
Scrum is simply a way of, thankfully, of getting rid of the long waterfall. But fundamentally, it's still waterfall under the covers, it feels like.
Yeah, and that's what these modern product managers are noticing, right? So the way that the corporate Scrum is corporate Scrum, and whether it's what it should have been or shouldn't be, that's the reality that we're stuck with. And now these modern product managers who maybe didn't even get Scrum certified, they're showing up and they're going, hey, whatever you're doing here is not helping me, right? What I need is rapid iteration. So the word iterative I think XP was using it wrong, because iterative means your product is changing very quickly, or it's not a time box. A time box is a time box, and I don't know why we called that an iteration, because a product iterates, and so designers understand iterative development very well, because they go, hey, let's try this one. That didn't work. Okay, let's move this. How's this one? So every time I do, how's this one? That's an iteration, right?
Right, but I think the iteration is more about the idea that it costs money to keep changing plans. And so
Right,
you basically
right.
you basically are saying to the developers, look, I promise to leave you alone for a week, say, but if there's a crisis, I'm going to come in and cancel the iteration.
Yeah.
Right. And my point is without that, you would, I mean, it would be even more chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're dead right about, I think what we talk about Agile isn't even what Agile should have been for the most part. And retrospect is making changes to the process, yes. Whereas modern product management is about making changes to the product. So yeah, retrospect is there for a team to improve on itself. Whereas the tool set for delivering the right thing, that just wasn't there 20 years ago. Like the best hunch we had was that, hey, by releasing small and often, we'll find out what the users actually use and what they like, and we'll get that feedback. So that was the words that we used, but that was a practice that I never, ever, ever saw in all my 20 years of working in the Agile world, ever. And yet now we're seeing it with these modern product managers who are coming along. Hey, this is how to do it. We create these hypotheses. We come up with the it's the scientific methods. And now they've given us the tool set with the promise that we promised the world 20 years ago. Only now we have a tool set to actually start doing that, I feel. Yeah.
Thank you.
One comment that I believe, Ron, you'll probably remember this quote from Fred George, is if you're doing Agile the same way you were doing Agile 6 months ago, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, I'm going to bash on Scrum a little more. The Scrum guide says, if you're not doing it exactly according to this, you're not doing Scrum, which is, okay, that might be true, but that just doesn't feel very Agile to me. And if I'm a big fan of fast Agile, probably because I'm the inventor of it. But, fast Agile says, hey, start here. And then the goal is for the tribe, the collective, to own their own process, to go, hey, it's your process, right? At the core of it is you self-organize around work, but you own the process. Go work it out, and you've got to work out a democratic process for your tribe, and now you own it, which comes with a lot more weight. Things go a little slower, but then they go righter as well.
Mark, again.
Yeah, I like being clear that a lot of these things are tools, and they can be very useful tools, especially when it comes to tools that you use to improve your process. And I definitely appreciate that. There's a lot of you hear about schools talking about how we teach you how to think, not how to do this thing. And I think that's a lot of what the interesting writing related to product management relates to is they're saying, hey, this doesn't work. Here's a different tool that you can use, but the tool is not the solution. The tool is a piece that you can take advantage of if it's appropriate. And you need to fundamentally understand, you need to have a broader understanding of the specific situation you're in to know if it's the right tool, and really to even use that tool as effectively as it possibly could be. And I think that's one of the big things that Agile suffered from, especially with the direction it headed, was people applying it because it worked and not thinking about the larger context and not recognizing the appropriate pieces of it and recognizing the things that needed to be adjusted.
Yeah, and I like where you're going with that, and I think that's one of the biggest things I learned from this modern product management is this starting to think more scientifically about everything we do. There's a hypothesis. How do we test it? Let's define. And I know Steve was a sticker about this. If we're going to run an experiment, you got to write it down. And
yep.
He's dead right. You got to, not only do you write it down, you got to say, and these are the metrics we'll be measuring. So if the metrics trend in this way, then we're heading towards a success. The goal of experimentation is learning, right? Okay, so now we've got data, we've learned something. What do we do with that learning? Oh, we've learned that we're not going to implement that feature. We've learned that this feature looks like it could be good. There's more we need to know, or what else do we need to know? We need to know this, or okay, now we know enough to run an A/B test. Let's put that out there. So this whole way of thinking that if we're going to pick up a new tool, we should also be treating this as using this scientific method, right? Why are we picking this up? Let's write that down. If this were to work, what metrics would we see trending? At what point would we stop using this tool? We don't do that. We just jump head in because the rest of the business is using it. Oh, Scrum must be the right thing. 90% of the world is using it. Dive in, spread it out across the entire company instead of running these small baby steps, continual experimentation, incremental delivery, things that we know as software developers we don't do in the process world. Blows my mind. Like, so this has really changed the way I think about things, particularly retrospectives. If we get and I see most retrospectives I go to are useless. Someone else said that too, and now we get to the end of the meeting. We go, all right, what experiments are we going to run? Great, we've got experiments. Like C said, let's write them down. Why are we doing this? Like, what outcome is this experiment connected to? Oh, we want to get better at. I see this in retrospectives. What went well? We had a 3 o'clock lunch meeting, or the happy hour. Yeah, we had a happy hour. What outcome are we aiming for here, people? Right? Where we're just like doing this shotgun of like, hey, what went well, what didn't get well, and there's these 12 things. Like, hey, why aren't we focusing and saying, all right, what's the marketing outcome that we need as a team right now? Is, all right, we're not connecting as a team. Okay, what experiments can we run to make us collect as a team? Well, maybe it's a happy hour. Right, there's the experiment. Happy hour. Outcome is this. What are the measures that would say that this happy hour is working? Now it's an experiment. Now it's a retrospective. Now it's focused, not this meeting, check, we did the Scrum thing, So it's really changed the way I think about about everything.
I wanted to sort of jump in there and just add one component to, because I agree with all of that, but I do sometimes hear with this idea of scientific method and experimentalism and emphasis on particularly people with a more businessy background or data nerds or whatever, like it has to be a measurable number, quantifiable thing for experimentalism. And in some places it probably should be. In some team dynamics, the experiment may not be like we produce 47% more lines of code, or a number, a quantifiable thing. Qualitative facets are important, particularly where humans are concerned.
Yes.
And definition of experiments, even for the business, might need subjective, context-driven judgment calls that you don't have the data that gives you the answer, so you have to interpret or massage or whatever.
Right.
But hopefully it's feeding into a context of continuous experimentation.
Yeah.
So where you don't have relevant, concise data, maybe you get better data eventually. And this, I think, happens both on a business, or hopefully can happen both on a business side as well as with the team. And I remember a talk at Beyond Agile pre-pandemic where this person like did personal experiments. And I haven't figured out how to get myself to do that. But this idea can permeate into lots of different things. I like the idea of opening up some of these thoughts for, like the thing about psychological safety and neurodivergence, right? Like participants in this don't have to have a unified, like the same view as everyone else, nor do each company have to have, like workers at one organization have to have the same view as workers at another organization. Context is really important, individual as well as cultural. So
yeah, not everything that matters can be measured. I remember that statement, and I think that comes to qualitative, quantitative. Something, some things are hard to find metrics around, but then you can stick with qualitative. And are we getting more connected as a team? How are we feeling about it? Well, let's do first of 5. Hey, last time we asked it, we got this time is that. So we can use qualitative kind of questions around that. That's awesome. I like that personal experimentation. Wow. Damn it.
I haven't figured out how to. I need some inspirations for me to actually practice that.
Yeah.
Well,
it starts with writing it down.
It is.
Yes.
And there is a huge power with writing it down. Write an experiment down. Otherwise, all you're doing is messing around.
Hey, Quo, this would be a good a meetup session maybe that you might want to facilitate, because I know you're pretty hot on this one.
Yeah, and I do personal experimentation too.
That's what I'm saying. I'd enjoy that session on that.
I should just note, it wasn't Steve that is the speaker I was talking about.
Yes.
I wasn't laying the carpet out for Steve to step up.
Yes. No, if it was Steve, I would have known. But I know Steve does talk about a lot about this stuff too. But there's like you mentioned psychological safety, and there's can you measure that and stuff? But there's things we can actually measure now. Like there's a plugin for Zoom which measures how much each person talks. So one of the measures of psychological safety is equal time speaking. So at every meeting, at the end of the meeting, you've got data on, oh, look at this, Steve and Ron hogged 80% of the conversation in a team of eight people. Oh, Steve and Ron have got some work to do, right? Because we're not creating psychological safety. And then you can actually look back at that and to say, how many questions did we ask? Did we, how much of the time was spent by women talking versus men? There's actual data we can now start measuring that relate to these kind of softer things. Yeah.
I'm curious how, if anybody knows this, how Project Aristotle, Google's study on the highest performing teams, how they measured it as their number one quality for their highest performing teams was psychological safety.
Yeah, Project Aristotle is super exciting to me. The two major things that they found, and psychological safety came after was described, but the two things they found was equal time speaking and higher than average social sensitivity. So equal time speaking is something you can measure, right? Because they're looking at transcripts or video recordings of meetings and stuff, like, oh, look at this. So they noticed that pattern. Then higher than average social sensitivity, there's tests you can do around that. And I wonder how much of that they did, or how do you measure that? Should you measure that? Should you create classes about increasing that? Could you do that? Should you hire for that? It touches on a whole bunch of new stuff, but certainly what's interesting that we, before that study, Google was very much about high performance and, we hire the best cream of the crop people. And then the shock to find out, hey, just having the smartest people in the world doesn't make us the most effective company. Looks how shock. It turns out to be this soft stuff. So the soft stuff is the hard stuff. Always, it continually follows that pattern. And so did Google do anything to change their hiring patterns? Yeah, because we hired George because he's got his PhD in this and that and that. And so, yes, I'm hiring him. So it's okay to bias that way, but is it then okay to bias on, well, Cody actually has higher than average social sensitivity? Because now we're getting into this space of, I don't want to even go there, but you know, it takes us into another space. Why is it okay to stack rank on ability, but not on social sensitivity, right? We got these weird patterns, but it certainly creates an interesting question for organizations and hiring and training.
George?
I just wanted to mention that a quote I read recently was basically saying that nothing that humanity has ever done has been done by a lone person. Right. And so when you start looking at it that way, it's sort of like, well, it doesn't really matter how smart you are individually. What matters is how smart you are collectively.
Yeah.
Right. And so without the social niceties, you know, nobody will listen to you, and vice versa, right?
Right.
And so it's like you can see how social sensitivity actually wins in the end for anybody that's working with anybody, right? As opposed to just off in the corner doing whatever they feel like because they're a fellow or something like that, right? You know, so it's like, yeah, they just get to make whatever they want, and it might get used, might not, whatever. But yeah, so anyways, there's that aspect that I just think is critical.
Sure.
And of course, when you factor that into the fact that, look, let's face it, the majority of us are somewhere along the Asperger's spectrum.
Right? That's the word I didn't want to use. Right.
Right. And so you get this situation where it's like, okay, well, is it any wonder that developers are not necessarily high on that scale? Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, that creates an awkwardness for the industry that we're in. And it's interesting that this study came out of Google, which is, heavily tech software, and they discovered that. Because there's, some of the furthest down that spectrum are extremely talented. Like they've got amazing technical abilities, but and that's why I mentioned training and coaching. Is there training and coaching that can help us all become better at these skills? Because you don't want to rule out a whole group of people, because none of us, all right, about half of us are below average on social sensitivity, right? So
as a rule, yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. About half of us are below average on anything, right? Like, well, as a rule, yeah, it depends on how you measure medians or averages. But yeah, so we can't, rather than being selective on just those, is there a way that we can rate our skills up, that even if we are below average, it's still sufficient, it's still good enough? Maybe there's a lower threshold even. How do we bring that capability up in people? That's which I find fascinating. And again, like I said, we're pushing into new things now. Like we're learning about agile. Psychological safety wasn't a word 20 years ago. Like now it's part of our consciousness and things that we're trying to create. Now we know that having women on your team is one of the leading signifiers of success, right? We didn't know that 20 years ago. So it's exciting and where we're going, and that we keep innovating and finding new things. And that I'm pretty sure that will be a whole. And if you can tap into that now, how do you raise someone's level of social sensitivity? There's a training you can sell to companies big time. Hey, if anyone's interested in creating a startup around that, but yeah, like, wow, that's going to be you're going to make a lot of money. Yeah, and rightly so. I think that's something you're helping, not only helping people, you're helping society and making better people. That's great. I got a question. So this talk was an experiment. It's something that I'm kind of passionate about. You probably saw the deck as a little thrown together, and I apologize for that. But it's a lean startup experiment. I did probably a little less than minimal viable either, but I threw it together to kind of see if I was interested in talking about it and see what the feedback was as to, and if this looked successful, then I might submit it to the Agile Alliance as a talk for next year. So yeah, just curious, and then the comments from 0 to 5, so we'll use a virtual fist of 5. Yeah, do you think it would fly or be of interest at the Agile Alliance as a session there? You can show your hands, or if you're, yeah, okay.
Fist of 5.
Shy's flittering. Okay.
I will
don't
say
have
one
half
thing.
a finger. I'd give you 3.5.
Okay.
I will say one thing is that I don't think that these two, the models you're promoting, which I agree with, are an or against agility. It's an and.
Yes, I totally agree. It builds on agility, yeah.
But in some of the slides, it more looks like, well, Agile isn't working. Now we have to do this. And to me, they're highly complementary.
Okay. Yeah, I think I should word that better. That Agile works for delivery, but it doesn't work for discovery. I think that's where. And so now we need to work out, hey, how do we? And we've done that, right? From where Agile was, it's now grown into like lean startup, DevOps. These are things that have grown out of it. Psychological safety, modern Agile is getting better. So yeah, modern product management now needs to be incorporated into modern Agile. But thank you for that feedback. I should spend less time beating up on Agile.
Maybe, but that's one of the things you like to do.
I do like doing it.
It's low-hanging fruit.
It may be the difference between beating up and lovingly criticizing.
Yeah, and the problem with beating things up is you piss people off, and then they're not going to listen to you. So I got to get better at not showing my own biases so much. Yeah.
I lived for a while in the South, and so you can just say, well, Scrum, bless its heart.
Yeah.
Which is a way of insulting it, but not sounding like you're insulting it.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to borrow that. I really like the comment that Harry just put there. Women being in the team make it better. Explains why software in the 80s was so much better. Yeah. That's.
It might be a partial explanation.
Yeah. And that's a hard one to measure. Was software in the 80s better? I mean, because the software that I was using in the 80s was, I was writing
lines of code.
Apple Soft Basic back then. So yeah. I don't know if we can compare it, but it's certainly been a trend since the 80s of male dominance in the industry, which does need to turn around. Yeah. Hidden figures, yes. And it's amazing how, not it's amazing, but it's great that we're now acknowledging how many leading female figures there were in the sciences and computing. When did that change, right? Because it's almost, in the world of shooting, like target shooting, women are better than men, and we don't know why. Like okay, men and women are there is some fundamental differences in our brains and physiology, and so something in women makes them better at shooting, and I think there's probably something in women that probably make them better at software. Certainly at at computer science that's just been that needs to come back.
I
Yeah.
think it was the Mythical Man Month that talked about the fact that when IBM was originally hiring programmers, that they focused on musicians. And you know, thereby that brought in a lot of women and stuff like this.
Mhm.
And like I said, and then sometime in the 60s, the powers that be, which were idiots, decided that you know, programming is really about math as opposed to logic. You know, and you know, to me, it's like, it's not that I don't do math in my programming, it's just such a small percentage.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Pathetically small, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you go to you go to college and you learn computer science and you learn about, you know, these searching algorithms and stuff, and then you get out in the real world and you never use any of it. All day, all long, I'm pushing strings around, moving, you know, looking up data from here, presenting it over here. So all I'm doing is consuming APIs that someone else has written. Like that's been like 99% of my life as a software developer, right? I think very few of us get to do that really cutting edge, interesting stuff. And yet I think women have been and could be given a chance again. I think that's where they really, really would excel at. Yeah. Give us dudes the easy dumb stuff. Yeah.
The heavy lifting and the smart work can be done by others.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, I'm facing up. I'm an average developer. Like I don't. Yeah. And I admire people that can do that other stuff.
Eric West has an interesting theory about when the switch took over for males in computers and females not as much, and it has to do with advertising for home PCs that happened in the early 80s. There was one year where it showed boys and girls playing with home PCs, but then the next year they decided they were only going to show boys playing with them.
So I'm into retro computing.
Yeah.
Anything with this, right next to me, I've got two Apple IIs. I've got a stack of like floppy drives that they're actually using. So yeah, I'm really into that, and I'm reading a lot of the old like magazines. It's so funny. You look at the advertisements. Literally, there's a guy wearing a business suit sitting on his computer, and a woman wearing a gown like she's going out to a ball or something, draped over the guy. So like she's attracted to him because he's so smart and knows how to use a computer. I'm like, oh, this is just so wrong.
Yep.
Straight from the 80s, you know, there it is. There was that subliminal messaging there going on. Yeah.
So we're at the 2-hour mark. Do we feel that it's valuable to keep this going? Right now it's sort of free form. There's discussion happening. Ron's doing a lot of it. Do we want to keep going or do we want to wrap this up for now? Quick vote. Show. Yeah. Yeah. And Cody left too. So let's everyone quick leave while Cody's gone. Dang it, he's back.
I'm here.
Okay. So I would like to thank everyone for staying. We've got 22 people here. There's been 2 hours. Ron, thank you very much for talking. You're always welcome to come back, my friend.
Thank you.
Next month, on the 3rd Thursday of the month, Paige will be talking about team building. Should be a wonderful, wonderful talk. And then we will start off the new year back onto our 4th Thursday of the month with, I think, the 3rd or 4th year in a row, Llewellyn Falco will be coming and talking to kick off the year. So thank you all. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy, be awesome.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ron.